Thanks, Cindy. Before we get started, I just wanted to give my monthly plug about the administrator conference. I know everybody's really busy this time of year, but we hope that you can find time to come to Champaign on April 13th, which is the reception, and April 14th, which is the conference for the PFA/PFAE Administrators Conference. We are planning a lot of good sessions. We have 390 people already registered, which is amazing, and we don't want you to miss out. So please go to the ECPL website if you have not registered yet. So today, our topic is about children experiencing homelessness, specifically preschool students. I am just the sidekick in this presentation. I'm just going to talk a little bit about how it relates to your grant. But our expert with us today is Kate Ulmer. She is the state coordinator for McKinney-Vento Homeless Education. And this is a presentation that we've done a few times, particularly for teachers and family staff in the evening time, but we thought it would be really helpful for administrators too. So Kate, take it away.
Hi, everyone. I am Kate Ulmer. I am here with Illinois State Board of Education, and I work on the McKinney-Vento program. So we're going to be talking today about our McKinney-Vento Homeless Act, an overview of early childhood programs, educating our young children that are experiencing homelessness, barriers and challenges. Our preschool homeless resources will be included. And then we'll have a little bit of information on youth in care. I'm not the youth in care coordinator, but I do like to make sure that you are informed on what to do if you have a youth in care or a youth in foster care. Okay, so our McKinney-Vento Homeless Act was originally passed in 1987 and it was reauthorized in 2015. McKinney-Vento provisions actually took effect on October 1st, 2016. And so it has been over 30 years of removing barriers to education for our homeless children and youth across the United States. To get an idea of what our national picture of homelessness looks like, over 700,000 people were experiencing homelessness on a single night in January of 2024 in the United States. And that is an 18% increase from 2023. Also, over 200,000 families with children experienced homelessness, and that is a 39% increase from the previous year. A lot of times for McKinney-Vento, we talk about students living in doubled up situations, which we'll get into what that means, but 3.2 million people live in doubled up situations across the United States as of January 2024. 44% of our young women, which are aged 18 to 25, and 18% of young men experiencing homelessness are currently expectant parents to over 1.1 million young children in the United States. But let's take a look at what my data records, and that's here, Illinois pre-K through 12 homeless students. We do collect the birth to 3 information, but I don't have that identified here on this slide. You'll see the trend in our homeless counts. And you'll see that in 2020, it was the lowest that it's been. And many of you can probably guess as to why. That would have been around pandemic time. So schools weren't necessarily identifying as well as they could have. And then when we look at school year 2023-24, we had an increase because of the amount of students coming to Illinois on buses from other countries. So that's why we had such a huge influx. You'll see it was about 10,000 influx. But we expect for a school year 24-25 to be right, I'm sorry, 25-26, which is what we're in right now, to be right about where 24-25 was, if not higher. Our current school year as of 1/15/26, you'll see that we are already up to over 50,000 students identified. Again, that's pre-K through 12. So what does the McKinney-Vento Act do? Basically, it establishes the definition of homeless, which is to be used by all of our state agencies, um, our state education agencies, and our local education agencies, which means districts. It ensures that children and youth experiencing homelessness have an immediate and equal access to public education, provides educational access, stability, and their support that they need. And it's needed because many of our students have unique barriers. And the last thing that it does is it establishes a liaison at every district. So when I teach how to identify McKinney-Vento, we talk about these three words: fixed, adequate, and regular. We look at each individual situation to see if the situation a student is living in meets, at least if it meets all of these. If it does not meet one of them, then they are considered McKinney-Vento. So we start with fixed. It's stationary and permanent, and it's not subject to change. Is it adequate? Lawfully and reasonably sufficient, sufficient for meeting the physical and psychological needs that are typically found in a home environment. And finally, is it regular? Is it a predictable routine, a consistent basis? How permanent is this stay for them? And I kind of mentioned being doubled up. Doubled up is one of our situations that can be considered homeless. Doubled up arrangements are often temporary, and they're a temporary shelter where the family can stay and the family and or the youth are in a safe situation. A lot of times doubled up means that they are staying with another family because of maybe an eviction or no room at a shelter, something along those lines. So why is it our students don't just go to a shelter or our families don't go to a shelter? As we know, Illinois is not all Chicago. Uh, Chicago has a lot of shelters, but if we come down south at all, you'll know that some of our communities, actually most of them, do not even have a shelter. So that's our first issue and barrier for our homeless families. The second is if there is a shelter, oftentimes they are full. We've especially found this in the past few years when homelessness has had a trend upwise. Our shelter policies may be creating barriers. Well, what does that mean? So some of our shelters, an example is that boys over the age of 12 cannot stay with their family if it's a women's shelter. So women are often put in the situation of, do myself and the other children stay in the shelter while my boy, who is 12 years old, goes to the men's shelter alone? So that can become a barrier for our families. Shelters may generate safety concerns, as you can well imagine. There's a lot of people in one space. And they also have stay limits. Many of them have a stay limit of how long a family can stay there. And so that's why a lot of times our students are not in shelters and are maybe in a doubled up situation. So for our displaced children, or McKinney-Vento children, McKinney-Vento provides stability and support for our students. It requires an immediate enrollment for eligible students. Once they're enrolled, we assess their needs and we provide additional referrals to additional services as needed. Examples of referrals would be referrals to dental care, referrals to eye care, referrals to doctors, and so on. Anything that is needed in order to help this child succeed. One category of students we have is called an unaccompanied homeless youth. So this is a child that is not in the physical custody of a biological parent or a guardian. In this case, a child's parent has retained legal guardianship of the youth, but they don't have physical custody. They could be considered an unaccompanied youth. Age is not a factor. So we can have an unaccompanied youth that is in preschool. Our caregiver, the person taking care of them, is not required to have legal guardianship in order to enroll the child in school. I do have a link here for the ISB caregiver form, and this is what can be used when the district is wanting to make sure that they are connecting with who is taking care of that child, because having the child in school is going to be the most important thing. We know they're going to be safe for those 8 hours a day. So that's why we want to make sure we're enrolling these children that are unaccompanied youth. Okay, so our McKinney-Vento liaisons. Every district in Illinois and actually across the United States must have a McKinney-Vento liaison. Their role includes making sure that students, including our preschool students and our unaccompanied youth, enroll in and have full and equal opportunity to succeed in school. Next, they make sure that students are identified um, through either school personnel, through other agencies, through continuums of care. They make sure that children and families have access to receive any educational services that they're eligible for, including Head Start, early intervention, any preschool programs that are run by the district. Children, youth, and families receive referrals, as I said before, to different things, including healthcare, dental, mental health, substance abuse, housing, and other services for the families and the children.
Hey, before we go too far, would you mind answering a couple of those questions that are in the chat? Can you see the chat?
I can, let me see.
Doubled
Um,
up and unaccompanied youth.
to be clear, doubled up doesn't mean adult children living with their parents with their children. It could. It could. Every situation is different. So the question is, if we have an adult child, so maybe my 18-year-old has a child and lives with me, could that child be considered McKinney-Vento? Could be, yes. That's where that liaison is trained to look at different information and to determine whether or not they are. The next thing is shelters don't accept service animals, correct? That does create another barrier. A lot of times our families don't want to leave either just their animals or if they have a service pet. Unaccompanied youth, please elaborate on that. So unaccompanied youth is someone that's not living with their parent or guardian, but someone is taking care of them. An example that I have of that is mom just drops child off at a grandmother's house. No paperwork is provided. Grandmother does not have birth certificates or anything for that child, just has the child, and they're of an age that they should be in school. That grandmother has the right to enroll that child as a McKinney-Vento student. I'm not going to get into foster care yet, but that can sometimes come into play as well. These are all very, very good questions here. Next question, just to clarify, does each building in a school need a liaison or is there one per district? Great question. So Sarah, each district has to have a liaison. Many of our districts are so large that they have one main liaison, and then each building has a person that acts as the liaison for that building. So that would be something to ask the person identified as your liaison to see if there's someone in your building and see if that's something they want to start doing.
I think the transportation question we'll get to.
Yes, transportation we will get to. and I don't know about service animals much. So that that's beyond my scope. Okay. So determining eligibility, as I had said, it's a case by case determination, and our liaisons are each trained on how to make those determinations. But what we want, administrators and teachers and everyone else to know is who that liaison is, so they can say, "Hey, can we look at Jane Doe and their situation to see if they might qualify for McKinney-Vento?" Um, when we are making this case by case determination, we get as much information as possible. Our liaisons are supposed to be sensitive to the questions they ask and to use discretion. We always look back at what is the definition of McKinney-Vento. So we're always looking back at what does that McKinney-Vento foster care, I'm sorry, not foster care. I was trying to read something here. let me let me close out the chat so that I'm not distracted by that. um, so we always look back to that McKinney-Vento definition, which is the federal definition. And finally, we consider who they're staying with. Where would you go if you couldn't stay here? And what led you to move into this situation? So I saw something pop up about a question about an 18-year-old. So that would be where that liaison should ask that question. If you couldn't stay with your parents and your baby and you couldn't stay, where would you go? If the answer is nowhere, like I have nowhere to go, we have no money, we have no income, then they're going to be considered McKinney-Vento. So that would be.
Is there anything else you want to address in the chat before I go on?
Let me look at it really quick. Sorry, I closed it out because I got distracted.
Yeah.
So yes, Miss Dr. Beckley Carter. Yes, that family could be considered doubled up, even though the 18-year-old has never moved out. Again, that liaison needs to ask some sensitive questions and find out what would the 18-year-old do if parents kicked them out? Where are they going to go? If that answer is we'd have to go to shelter or something like that, or go stay in a hotel or be living on the street, then yes, they would be considered McKinney-Vento. Now, if they say I'm a millionaire already and we're just staying here because it's fun and mom just takes care of the baby, then then that's a different story. Okay, I'm going to turn it over to Jenny.
Okay. So a lot of these things that I'm going to talk about related to the grant, I'm sure most of you are experts on already, but we're just going to level set a few things here. So Early Child Block Grant, Preschool for All expansion, prevention initiative, we want to serve the most at-risk children. We want to identify the most at-risk children through our recruitment and outreach. And the number one thing that we get asked all the time is there boundaries? There are not district boundaries. We know that sometimes districts, for various reasons, have to prioritize children in their district, but from a state level perspective, there is not district boundaries for Preschool for All expansion enrollment. We, of course, use a weighted eligibility criteria to be able to prioritize the most at-risk children through our family interview, through the screening process. And of course, we give priority to children experiencing homelessness, youth in care, and children with two or more developmental delays. So since not everyone has Preschool for All expansion, just a little bit of background on this one. The model was based on the federal grant that the state received in 2014. Early Child Block Grant money now supports this program, which is the Preschool for All expansion program. This program is supposed to be targeting the highest level of at-risk children. As some of you know, we have a weighted eligibility criteria that's mandated for that program. We have four priority populations: children experiencing homelessness, youth in care, children with IEPs, and families below the 50% federal poverty level. This program also has some mandated comprehensive services requirements, including health, social services, and expanded family involvement. And of course, it's a full day program. So children experiencing homelessness are considered a priority population for PFA and PFAE. They should have the highest potential points on the WAITIS eligibility checklist. Children should be enrolled immediately, and you'll hear more about that later. And income documentation, we know that that is a requirement for preschool for all expansion, not for children experiencing homelessness. We should not be requesting that. So one of the compliance requirements on the checklist you all know is the homeless plan. So all preschool for all and preschool for all expansion programs in school districts are required to have a written plan for serving homeless students. It is not a requirement for community-based organizations, but it's still recommended that you have some type of policy procedure that you're aware of resources to support those families. We do have a link to the plan on our website. I would say the biggest thing with this plan that we see is that you want to follow the plan that laid out. The previous McKinney-Vento person, I believe, put this together, and Kate's updated it. It's very specific, and it allows you to put in your own district's information. So this is really what you should be using. A lot of times programs are out of compliance because they are missing pieces of this. These are the things you want to make sure it covers: immediate school enrollment, attendance in the school of origin, provision for transportation, guidelines regarding dispute resolution, and provisions for comparable services. The dispute resolution one is the one that I would say programs get most out of compliance for. So if you follow along with this plan, you'll see that your district probably has a dispute resolution policy, so you can just add it in to your plan. And there it kind of breaks it down. If you go to our website, it all is spelled out there, so you can just include a copy of that piece of it and anything else that's specific to your district. So we're going to talk a little bit about the family interview, but there is in the plan on our website, there is a link to the McKinney-Vento Homeless Education Common Form. This is a form that was put together to help assist your staff when they're working with families, and it can be used like this or it can be adapted. So when you're doing the family interview. So the family interview, research has shown that a lot of families are not aware, they do not want to share that they meet the definition of McKinney-Vento. And so programs are advised to have a conversation with the parents, families to assess their living situation. The implementation manual does have some questions that you can use when you're working with families. Also, this is where the form comes in place because that will give you some guidance too, and you can keep track of that. You guys all know the preschool for all manual, so I'm not going to go over that more, but the questions are in that section. Just wanted to target a little bit about SIS because Kate showed those numbers about the student information system. So it's really important that you're enrolling your children on an ongoing basis. We all know that there's like that deadline right in the fall, typically in November but you should still keep enrolling children as you enroll them throughout the year so that we have the most up-to-date information. And of course, on the early childhood part of the SIS enrollment is where you would indicate if the child is experiencing homelessness. So that's really important information for us to be able to have statewide data on that. So I think we are going to share a video now. Let me check real quick, Karen, first, if there's any questions in the chat. Kate lost, oh, she's back. She lost the
I'm
internet
back
connection.
now, but I
Okay, good.
lost internet connection. So
Mhm. Let me see if there's anything else in the chat. Transportation, you're going to talk a little bit more about, right, Kate, coming later? Okay. And so about district boundaries. There's no district boundaries for preschool for all and preschool for all expansion at all, other than the fact they should live in Illinois. We want you guys to be filling cap to the capacity for the numbers that you were funded. So it is our hope that you would not impose a district boundary if you have openings. All right, Karen, I think you can take over the video. Kate, do you want to say anything about the video? Oh, wait. Oh,
no, we can go ahead and just play it.
okay.
Hundreds of little nomads in America sleeping in the backs of cars, on floors in welfare offices, or in shelters 5 to a room. What would it mean to spend your childhood drifting from one strange bed to another, waking in the morning to try and figure out where you'd landed today without those things that confer security and happiness? A picture on the wall, a certain slant of light through a curtained window. "Give me your tired, your poor," it says on the base of the Statue of Liberty to welcome foreigners. Oh, but they are already here, the small refugees from the ruin of the American dream, even if you cannot see them. Scattered like seeds strewn across the land, millions of Americans hidden in crevices of small towns, rural communities, and megacities, adrift and destitute.
Is for
alligator.
Okay, put that down right there. See. Now, what comes next?
Schools have identified 1 million students without homes, and that number could easily double if those not identified or hiding their homelessness were counted. That number doesn't even factor in younger siblings, those under the age of 6. Hundreds of thousands of babies, toddlers, preschoolers in the most critical developmental stage of their lives, lacking a place to call home. For these littlest nomads, and for all of us, homelessness in America is an early childhood crisis.
and D is for
Devontae and Dante and dog.
Embarrassed and traumatized, parents fear losing custody of their children if their plight is discovered. To avoid being noticed, they bounce from friend to relative to cheap motels, shelters, campgrounds, cars, and streets. Littlest nomads become experts in poverty and homelessness before they even get to their elementary school doors.
G is for
Gorilla.
and what comes after G?
Discarded by society, communities unaware, multitudes of littlest nomads spend their most formative years in appalling surroundings, far from the idyllic environments depicted in baby magazines. Swaddled in squalor, stability shattered, their family unit rocked by endless catastrophes, these toddlers eventually end up sitting in classrooms overwhelmed by fear, uncertainty, and stress, thwarting chances to achieve classroom success and greatly jeopardizing the odds of graduating from high school, let alone college.
Say your
B,
alphabet.
D, E, F, G, H, I, K, J. J.
Federal demonstration programs confirm that homeless children have greater developmental delays, health issues, and learning problems than other children living in poverty. Small children need safe, positive, predictable relationships and environments for optimal development. And besides a place to live, their struggling parents need someone to support and believe in them. But their nomadic lives make that almost impossible for many reasons. Most communities lack awareness of homelessness among young children, so these littlest nomads remain invisible to the early childhood services that could help them.
H, I, J, K, L, M, P.
So what comes after L? L, M.
M.
Yeah, down there.
Find the M.
Look at the one for the M that looks like mommy.
High mobility keeps families from staying long enough to make it to the top of waiting lists for important programs. This mobility also makes it more challenging to locate and consistently serve these families. Inadequate transportation to public early education and preschools, especially in rural areas, keeps homeless families from accessing scarce services. Funding for programs serving this vulnerable and voiceless population is severely limited. But despite these obstacles, gallant efforts nationwide strive to help homeless families overcome their challenges, with schools at the foundation of assistance. Federal law requires every school district to designate a liaison for homeless children and youth. With a concerted effort, families with toddlers and preschool-age kids will be connected with Head Start, which has shown a 44% increase in numbers of homeless children served and other services. Head Start prioritizes these homeless tykes for enrollment and develops plans, including essential transportation for meeting their needs. Homeless service providers and school district liaisons must make sure that homeless children and families can benefit from Head Start's comprehensive services or other vital programs. Some communities provide a specialized daycare environment for babies and toddlers traumatized by homelessness so that parents can look for housing, work, or attend appointments while their children receive quality daycare.
We created a space of belonging where children felt at home, and in the process taught them to love themselves. If a child's crying, we're going to respond to the tears. If a child's mad, we're going to respond to the anger. If a child's feeling happy, we're going to respond to the joy.
Another invaluable and growing effort, ironically, home visiting. It connects disenfranchised families with a professional educator who guides parents on the basics, like how to read and relate to their children, with the goal of improving school readiness. This educator becomes the consistent support for the family, encouraging and assisting parents with educationally related challenges. In programs like the Mobile Outreach Parent-Child Home Program on Long Island, the home visitor goes to the family, eliminating the transportation and high mobility barriers. Families staying in shelters, motels, vehicles, and campgrounds anywhere will see their teacher on a regular basis. Besides the obvious benefit to children, parents gain an invaluable support system that helps them navigate the ordeals of homelessness.
Ultimately, in a weird sense of the way, really eased the situation that we were going through. You know, just knowing that she was coming and just that little conversation here and there and seeing how happy the kids were and learning and it felt like they gave a normalness to our lives.
Home visitors bridge gaps for families isolated by poverty and homelessness, imparting vital guidance and support to beleaguered parents, encouraging them to nurture and teach their little ones.
A balance and a normalness to people whose lives are at that time unbalanced, and everything is chaotic and everything is unknown, and you're here in one place today and here in another place tomorrow, but they're still there. They're following everywhere you go.
Parents of littlest nomads have limited capacity to fight for their children or for the programs that help them. What can be done? Check your community's public schools. Is their homeless liaison aware of what needs to be in place to help homeless babies and toddlers? Is adequate outreach occurring? Find out from the liaison or other community agencies working with homeless families what practical resources are needed. Collect and distribute essential supplies like diapers and formula. Encourage service clubs, professional organizations, parents groups, college and university students to watch littlest nomads. Then inventory local efforts to assist families with younger children. Initiate contact with local, state, and federal legislators. Ask them about their awareness of this crisis and the local needs. Encourage them to learn about and protect this vulnerable population. Do our littlest nomads count? Do their families deserve the supports that will ensure thriving rather than barely surviving? Can our nation afford the consequences of their neglect? Children who are loved, nurtured, talked with, and read to are prepared to learn when they enter school. They have a much better chance of finishing school ready to contribute to society in a positive way. Lifting littlest nomads from their obscurity into the consciousness of America is the first step in restoring their American dream. Instead of prodding besieged parents to grab tattered bootstraps, We must collectively cradle and sustain the most vulnerable among us.
So that video is available, and it's on YouTube for anyone to play at any time. But also know that Hear Us is the name of the, I guess, that they a lot of different videos on different homelessness information. So it's a great place for if anyone wants to look and see some other videos that they have. This one we
Kate, you
really
cut
thought
out a
was
little
geared
bit.
towards our.
Oh, Kate, can you hear me? You cut out
I
a
can
little
hear you.
bit. Can you say that again, where that video came
Oh,
from?
goodness. Okay, so that video came from an agency called Hear Us, and Hear Us has many different videos that you are more than welcome to. They're all free and available on YouTube. This one, of course, was about our early childhood folks, but we do have others that are about liaisons and different things like that. So it's a good program and a good one for someone to take a look at. There you go. We did get a question said it's cutting in and out. Where are the videos? So the videos, there is a link in the PowerPoint that we will be sending you. But also, if you go to YouTube and type in Littlest Nomads, that specific one will show up, and it is called Hear Us. That is the name of the organization that puts on these videos. So, for our early childhood students, what are some of the barriers that we run into? And Jenny, please let me know if I break up again. For whatever reason, my internet is being funky.
Hey, Kate, it's
So,
Cindy. If you want to take off your camera, we're okay with that. That might help a little
okay,
bit.
I'll take off my camera. Maybe that will help a little bit.
Yeah, we're okay with that. Thanks.
Okay. So, some of the barriers that our students, our earliest children, have are, first of all, just a general lack of awareness of McKinney-Vento, both on the side of our young families and our districts at times. We have under-identification. Just across Illinois, we have under-identification. When we look at how many we should be identifying, we look at our free and reduced lunch rate, and about, if you have 100 students identified in free or reduced lunch, about 10% of those are probably actually would be qualified for McKinney-Vento. And that is just based on statistics. Next is invisibility. They did talk about that in that video there, but our students don't want to be seen as homeless. They don't want this information to be gotten out. Or they don't know that that help is available. And finally, sometimes our parents don't want everyone to know because they think that the state will try to take their children away from them. We have high mobility, so they're moving around a lot, and that can cause issues with us doing identification. And finally, enrollment requirements. Sometimes caregivers or parents don't know that if they are homeless, we can, I don't want to say waive a enrollment requirement, but push off that need for it. So if a birth certificate is what's holding up enrollment, we're still going to do immediate enrollment, and the school district and McKinney-Vento funds will pay for getting that information for the record that's needed. Some of their internal things, they may have poor health, fatigue, and hunger, the trauma that we talked about. One issue is transportation. That is a big barrier for many of our homeless students and families. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that later, about what's available from McKinney-Vento, lack of available spots in our programs. And as Jenny had said, these are considered a high priority. So I think there is something where we look at that. And then another barrier, of course, is their lack of school supplies and clothing, which is something that McKinney-Vento can also help with. Challenges. I kind of feel like we've already gone over this, but I'll go over a few of them. First of all, that lack of structure and routine. Already talked about the next ones, but if we go on to the adolescent mothers and fathers, they often don't know what help is available, and they don't know how to go about it. And sometimes our districts don't know how to go about it, especially when we have a high school student that has a child. How do we navigate that, and what help can we provide for that child, and then for the youth that's still in school? So our children who are homeless have 3 times the rate of emotional and behavioral problems. They are 4 times more likely to show delayed development, and they have twice the rate of learning disabilities. We also have special education barriers with our homeless students. Oftentimes, it takes a while for them to be identified as needing special education services because they move around so much. There can be a difficulty in their diagnosis because of that mobility. The assessment information. Doing an assessment can be difficult because of timelines and that mobility as well. When a school district identifies them as needing special education services, that clock starts. And a lot of times our next district doesn't know that clock has already started. And so we need that transparency between other districts. And that's why our liaison should know who those students are and be connecting those dots for everyone. That lack of efficient records transfer and timely, excuse me, our liaisons should be a portal in order to help all of those transfers happen more quickly. Even if it is not an official transcript that's being sent, something unofficial is being sent. And finally, there's a lack of an available parent or a surrogate for that child, which can cause a barrier when we're talking about special education. Okay, so we do have some crossover sector. Here's kind of the framework for taking a look at pre-K, Head Start and early Head Start, childcare, and HUD homeless assistance. When we look at the public pre-K, our McKinney-Vento Act requires our liaisons to proactively identify our children and youth, and to ensure that enrollment in programs, and that should be immediate enrollment, along with stability and transportation. Our Head Start and early Head Start, categorically eligible for families. And so again, it's with that public pre-K proactive outreach. And we give grace periods for things like immunizations, still have that prioritized enrollment, and we have reserved slots for homeless students. Our childcare requires prioritization, use of funds for outreach and enrollment of homeless families and expedited enrollment. And finally, our HUD homeless assistance. It requires our programs that serve families to designate a staff person to ensure enrollment in early childhood programs in schools. So these are all different ways that we're trying to identify students, trying to identify them through our public schools, our Head Starts, our childcare facilities, and our HUD assistance. So I've already gone over this, but I'll say it really quick here. Our liaison has several duties. They are to identify their McKinney-Vento students. They are to post the rights of McKinney-Vento parents and youth. So they're posting that in their district. They are to provide professional development on McKinney-Vento to all school staff. and to ensure that these youth receive educational services through Head Start or other preschool programs that are administered by the local education agency. There are a total of 10 things that are listed on their duties, and that I believe I had that linked, but you can see all of them. Oh, you don't need to go back. Sorry.
So we also sort of talked about this in relation to PFA and PFAE, but just to reiterate, the goal is that all children experiencing homelessness have access to some type of preschool, that children experiencing homelessness have access specifically to the public preschools that are administered by the state and the local school districts, and access to Head Start, early intervention, and any other type of program that is administered by your district. McKinney-Vento students are entitled to immediate enrollment in any public school that students living in the same attendance area are eligible to attend. Children experiencing homelessness do not have to provide required documents, including the school records, the immunizations, proof of residency, the income, as I was talking about earlier. None of that is required to enroll the child. Kate, I think this is your.
So, we keep drilling it into you that immediate enrollment and all of these things, that these are the requirements that are put out there by this law. So school stability is, of course, one of them. And we're looking at the best interest for each of our students. So the best interest is typically to continue the education in their school of origin for their duration of their homelessness. So even if the child attends school A, and then, as we said, they're very mobile and they move to different residencies, until they become permanently housed, they have the right to remain in that original school, even though they have moved 6 or 8 times. They've been homeless this entire time. In Illinois, a best interest determination is made by the parent. I will say that that is different than nationally. Nationally, it is made by the district, with the thought that the school of origin is, for the most part, going to be in the best interest of the child. But in Illinois, that parent gets to make that decision. Okay, transportation. LEAs must provide transportation to and from the school or preschool of origin, including until the end of the year if the student obtains permanent housing, at a parent's or guardian's request, or at the liaison's request, even if transportation is not typically provided. So even if it's not typically provided, transportation must be provided if it is requested. So how do we fund for this type of transportation? I will start with the first bullet. Title I, Part A set-aside funds can be used for transportation. Every district that is a Title I school, and even those that are not, have access to Title I, Part A set-asides. And that you can pay for transportation with that. Jenny, I'll let you say something about PFA, PFAE.
Yep. And so for your early child block grant funds, that can also be used if the Title I Part A set aside is not available. So that should be used first, and then your grant funds can be used. And of course, that should be included in your budget.
Okay. Then we also have local funds, and additional funding sources means, do you have other agencies that are maybe they're willing to put some money towards transportation, or sometimes we have community agencies that will provide transportation. I see some questions in here, so I'm going to pause for right now. And it says, can you speak to if the law continues to apply if the parent registers McKinney-Vento for multiple years? So homelessness does not end until a family obtains permanent housing. So that could be from preschool to 12th grade. So that child would have the right to stay in their school of origin from preschool to 12th grade if that is what they want to do. And if, well, I'm not, okay. So if you have any more questions about that, I will help with that. Next, what is the distance or times, especially if they moved or are placed further away? Um, I have worked in districts where they have the student enroll as a homeless student. They're, especially since the distance is too far, over 30 to 40 minutes away. So we do not have, the only thing written in legislation about a distance is 50 miles. If it is over 50 miles one way, then it is written in Illinois legislation that that it is not in the best interest of a student. Now, if we're talking about a preschool student that is traveling 30 to 40 minutes away, again, there's nothing in legislation that says that we cannot do that. But that is where that liaison is trained to have a conversation with the family to discuss that, discuss the situation and say why they believe that it is not in the student's best interest. The next question, DCF, or it says DCFS has provided transportation. So that if it's DCFS, we're not quite there yet. Right now we're talking about homeless. Is this door-to-door transportation? The only door-to-door transportation is if a student has an IEP that makes a transportation have to be door-to-door. None of our homeless transportation has to be door-to-door transportation. Next, what stops a family from enrolling as homeless in one district, but technically live in another, but prefer that district? That is something that school district liaisons are trained in. If a family, because what you're talking about is they are not telling the truth and trying to enroll in a school that they don't have the right to enroll in. And as a liaison, they have the right to investigate the situation and see where that family really is living. But that's a lot of ifs and thens. And so that would be a situation that if you ever think that, to talk to the liaison about what your thoughts are, and then they will start looking into it. But then we get into a dispute process and things like that if it can get that far. Okay. Birth certificates. We have a state law, Public Act 100-506, provides free birth certificates for people experiencing homelessness that were born in Illinois. It specifies that a service provider must sign a statement verifying the applicant's homeless status. Note, our public school homeless liaisons or social service workers are among the service providers who may sign a statement. So if any of your districts are needing a birth certificate or any of your programs are needing a birth certificate, your district liaison has that ability to get this for free. Okay, before I jump into youth and care, go ahead and go back for a second. I still see two more questions. Are there any guidelines requiring car seats and who buckles students in? I do not know. That would be a transportation department question. So that would be something to reach out to them about. And what if a family is unable to drive the student to the bus pickup spot? How can we support with transportation? So again, this is very specific. So if we have a bus pickup stop and it's not within walkable distance, then a new bus pickup spot would probably have to be arranged. But if it is in walking distance, then there is nothing to support in that we are providing transportation. We often have where a parent will say, but I want them to be picked up, right in front of my house. Well, that's, no, we're providing transportation. It's any students that I believe it's within a mile. I'm not going to exactly remember because I'm not in the transportation department, but there's a walking, like if it's within a mile of the school, students are able to walk. Again, don't quote me on that actual distance, but it is in statute. And so that's for any student. Okay, let's move on to youth in care. So this is youth in foster care. So why are youth in foster care? Basically, the parents have lost custody of their children for a variety of reasons. And our students that are youth in care or youth in foster care, they're in care of DCFS. And they include children that are in the following placements: foster homes, relative placements, group homes, emergency shelter, residential facilities, child care institutions, pre-adoptive homes, and trial return home placements. All of those are examples of categories of children that are in foster care situations. They're a foster care, youth in care. But why are they youth in care? Sometimes it's because of a death of a family member, or all parents. And so Illinois has taken guardianship. They maybe have been abandoned, exposed to family violence. There's sometimes a parent has been incarcerated, or there was a severe illness of a family member or parent. And then finally, juvenile offenses. Those are all reasons that students go into foster care. Can be because of abuse, can be because of neglect, again, abandonment, and next, substance abuse or addiction of the parents. There are over 21,000 students in Illinois that are currently youth in care. But how do we identify them? So if a student is a youth in care, and I'm going to use this term one more time, meaning Illinois has guardianship. If Illinois has guardianship, a Form 906 is going to exist. A DCFS Form 906, I'm going to have you click the button just once, Jenny, so we can see what that looks like, then we'll go back. This is what a Form 906 looks like. Oh, not the link, just the next slide. There we go. This is what a Form 906 looks like. And this is filled out for any student that is in a foster placement. And the 906 really is what a foster parent gets to be paid for. So if they have a 906, it means they are being paid to take care of this child, and Illinois has guardianship. If there is not a 906, then the student is not a foster care student. There were two other links on that last page. The first one is if you are looking for who the foster care liaison is at your district, I have the link for how you can find that out. And then above that is our ISB's Youth and Care Coordinator. Again, that is not me, but I'm happy to just give this information to you so it'll at least start you thinking about your students that are youth in care. And that's a link to her email address, which is youthincare@isb.net. And again, there's that 906. So our transportation requirements for pre-K. Districts may provide transportation to pre-kindergarten regular education students, but are not required to do so unless stated in the student's IEP. Again, this is pre-K for foster care. Districts are not required to provide door-to-door transportation for pre-kindergarten or elementary school unless it is required per the IEP of a student with disabilities. Districts are not required to recognize daycare centers for transportation purposes. And I just said this was foster care, but it is for McKinney-Vento as well. So you'll see that they're not required to do so, but it does put up a barrier when we do not. And that's why Jenny and I have shared like how that can be paid for and things like that. But you all bring up good things about seat belts and car seats and things like that. So those are all things that you would need to talk to your transportation department about. I think this is you, Jenny. No, it's me. I'm sorry. I thought it was you. Sorry. DCFS School Readiness Initiative. So this is a DCFS initiative that was started in 2008, and its goal is to increase the number of youth in care that are enrolled in quality early childhood learning programs. And this is to support their skills that they need to be ready for kindergarten. What their readiness initiative says is that children 3 and over must be enrolled in an educational program. There are opportunities for enrollment in pre-K, Head Start, and daycare. And the DCFS School Readiness team is available to assist with locating early childhood care and educational programs. So that is something that we're making sure everyone knows about, that if we do have a youth in care, DCFS works really hard to make sure that these students are, where they need to be and getting all the help they can, especially if they're over the age of 3. So this is a big one. This one's new. Again, this is with DCFS, preventing expulsion of children birth to 5 years old. We have the Public Act listed there. It prohibits early child care and education providers from expelling young children ages 0 to 5 from their program because of behavior. Providers must take documented steps to address the child's behavioral and other needs in order to keep the child in care. If ultimately necessary, the providers can work with a planned transition to a more appropriate setting. This planned transition is not considered an expulsion. Providers are also required to report data related to these transitions. The issue we were having was that there were 3 and 4 and 5-year-olds that were being expelled from school that were foster care students. The issue with our foster care and our youth in care is when we find a person that is a family that will take on a foster student, it's hard to keep them, to be quite honest, especially when we throw up additional barriers. And a barrier would be, as you can imagine, if you have a job and now your child has been expelled. Your foster child has been expelled. So then we lose good foster parents and a child gets shifted somewhere else. So we really try to work with DCFS to make sure there is a planned transition, so there's somewhere for that child to go and we don't lose a good placement for a child.
Kate, can I just add one thing here?
Yeah.
All of our Preschool for All and Preschool for All expansion programs know that they're supposed to have a policy in their, in their handbook or something about this. And so the stuff that Kate is mentioning would be good to have in your policy, especially in this next part here too.
Okay. So if there is going to be a suspension or an expulsion, this is for not just preschool, but any foster care student, immediately needs to be reported to the DCFS guardianship administrator. Now, so a guardianship administrator really they represent Illinois as being the guardian of this child. And so if you think about it, when you are going to suspend or expel a child, we always tell the parent. The foster parent can be told, but they are not considered the they are not considered the actual parent. The actual parent is Illinois. So that's where we have to send it to our DCFS guardianship administrator. We have both an email address that it can be sent to immediately, and we have an address for it to be mailed to. They prefer it to be emailed, but if it has to be mailed, it can be done that way too. Links to our email addresses. That wasn't what I had, but okay. So the first one is supposed to be the Youth and Care email address, but I have the web page on there. So it is youthandcare@isb.net. And then for DCFS, I have their web page as well. And then I have their email address as well too, which is dcfs.schoolreadiness@illinois.gov. Again, all these are going to be available to you. Okay, so know that part of the mandatory trainings for Illinois districts, staff training is one of those things that is currently listed. It went on into the law probably about a year ago, and it says that every 2 years, all staff must be trained on what homeless children and youths are. And these are the things that it says that must be in the staff training. So every 2 years, every staff member has to be trained again on what homeless is. The signs of it, the rights, what steps to take if a student is homeless, and what are the referral techniques, including who that person is at the district that can provide help or who that district liaison is. So this has been a very quick training, but what I want you to know is that we have Illinois broken up into 7 areas. And those 7 areas, each one has a lead liaison. That liaison provides training all through the year, and they want to connect with preschools as well. So I have the link later on in this slide, but wanted to make you aware that each of your areas, whichever one you are in, has a person, and that person is there to provide training on McKinney-Vento, to go through. I'm seeing many questions in here. They could go through these questions with you for your specific district. So really important to know that they want to connect with you. So if you want to connect with them, I can get you connected, or you can look through the link will be later on in this. So what do we tell staff? We find out that a student is McKinney-Vento, or they're homeless, or even if they're foster care. So what can I tell the staff member? We are going to share only information that's going to impact their learning or behavior. We're going to use objective and neutral language and explain what support is available for them. We're going to reinforce that this is confidential to that teacher and keep the focus on how can we help this student be successful. So here are some different resources. First one, we have a flow chart. Is my early childhood program a McKinney-Vento preschool? There's a flow chart for you to look at to see if it is. We have strategies to serve young children experiencing homelessness, the rights of families experiencing homelessness, and we found a fun Sesame Street workshop that deals with some homelessness stuff for young kids. So partnerships, pathways to partnership, early childhood, the CCAP eligibility and how to apply, and an early intervention office locator. How to get started with early intervention, just some good partnerships to know and have noted. Okay, so we have some scenarios. I don't know that we're going to get through all of them, but we will go through a couple of them. I'm going to let Jenny take over.
Whoops. Well, here we go. A child or youth has to be living on the street in order to be considered homeless. You can put your answers in the chat. Hopefully you didn't see me. You probably did. Kate, I can't really see the chat, so I'll let you monitor that.
Oh yeah, they're saying
Sharing.
false.
Okay, great. All children and families who stay with other families are defined as homeless.
I'm seeing falses come through.
False. Good job. A family that loses their home due to a natural disaster, such as a fire, hurricane, or other catastrophic event, qualifies as homeless.
Goodness, that chat is just blowing up. It's saying true. Are we right?
Yes, they are right. Do you want to do one of these?
Yeah, let's do one of them.
Do you have a preference? Do you want to do this one or?
I don't remember which one is which, so we'll just start with that. We'll just do that one.
All right. You guys can read it, but I'll read it quickly. Rosa, age 5, lives, if I can see it here. Oh, hang on. Lives with her parents. Oscar is a construction worker, and Marie's a cashier in a local supermarket. They rented a 2-bedroom apartment close to Marie's job and Rosa's Head Start program. Unfortunately, both Marie and Oscar were laid off and could not find jobs. They quickly spent their limited savings to meet their basic needs. When they were evicted from their apartment, Oscar called his brother Bill to explain their situation. Oscar asked if he and his family could come and stay with his brother. Bill lives in a 2-bedroom house with his wife and 2 children. Bill agreed and the Lows moved in. So is Rosa's family living in a homeless situation? Here are your options. You want to put your answer in the chat.
So 1, 2, 3, or 4. Okay, it's going crazy with 2s. I think they're right, but let's see.
Yay! Very good. They listened, Kate.
They did. I think we have time for one more.
Okay, you want to do this one?
Sure.
I can't see the top of it, so sorry. Amy lives with, what's the top say? Amy lives with who?
It just says, okay,
I
Amy,
can't see the
age
top part.
3. Amy, age 3, lives with her father, Sam Lee. Sam lost his job as a carpenter after the plant where he worked for 20 years closed. Sam has been unable to find work for months, and he could not pay the mortgage. He and Amy had to leave their home. To save money, Sam and Amy slept in their car last month while he looked for work. He heard about job openings in another community and decided to move there. He has rented a 1-bedroom apartment in a high crime area using a little savings that he had left. He's hopeful he will find a job, a Head Start program for Amy, and a better place to live soon.
Are Sam and Amy living in a homeless situation? 1, 2, 3, or 4.
Okay, I'm seeing different answers on this one.
All right, let's
So
see.
this must have been a good one.
4. You want to elaborate on that, Kate?
Okay, so right now they have rented an apartment. So if they were to come in right now, they are not homeless. However, if they had tried to enroll when they in between phrase before they got an apartment, when they were living in the car, then we would consider them homeless and would consider them that for the entire school year. But he said that he's looking for a Head Start placement. So that means he did not try to enroll while they were homeless. So at that time and place, we have to take a snapshot of that time and place of when they come in They are not considered McKinney-Vento. Okay.
Want to skip with this one?
Hey, I'm here. We can do
We
it.
have time? Okay. Ben lives with his parents and his sister Jane, 9 months. Alyssa wants to leave Joe because he is physically and emotionally abusive to her. She's reluctant to leave because she is unemployed and has no family support. She worries about leaving behind everything she owns. After building up the courage to leave, Alyssa found an opening at a domestic shelter. At the shelter, Alyssa and her children have food, clothing, and safe housing. They also receive referrals for health care. One of the social workers has talked to her about child care programs for the children. Are Alyssa and her children living in a homeless situation? 1, 2, 3, or 4.
All ones is what I'm seeing.
Oh, wow. Very good.
I should have made that one harder. I should have put another yes, but I'm going to change that for next time because you guys are too good. Yes, so they are living in an emergency shelter. I do want to say that a lot of times we have families that are in domestic abuse situations. So I get this question a lot that, well, hey, Rosa or Alyssa and her children have a house to stay in. They're just choosing not to. But domestic violence is a covered situation with McKinney-Vento. So I'm glad you all caught
Okay.
that.
And we'll do the last one here. Sophia lives with her parents, I believe, and her siblings. Enrique and Yvonne are migrant farm workers. The family left Florida as they do each year when the seasonal work ends and their camp closes. They went to Illinois for summer work and moved into a migrant camp. They had hoped to enroll their children in a Head Start and summer programs. After a month, the state's Department of Public Health closed the migrant camp due to unsafe conditions. The family then moved in with another couple and their 3 children who have a small 2-bedroom home. The situation is crowded. They are unsure if they will be able to stay with this family through the season. Is the Martinez family living in a homeless situation? 1, 2, 3, or 4.
Okay, this one's a good one.
What are
I
they
got a couple
saying?
of them. I'm seeing ones and twos. So they
Ones
know
and
yes.
all right.
They know that yes, it is, but got to
2.
figure out why. Okay. So I didn't go through migrant families a whole lot, but migrant camps is not always considered homeless. Again, we always have to look at the situation. It is predictable that they will be moving every season. So in that case, yes, they are moving a lot, but they know where they're going to be going, and they know they are going. Migrant program has their own program that they work with that helps them in order to keep the education stable, which is what we worry about. So the answer is yes. Number two, it is unclear if they're going to be able to stay with that other family through the season. That other family is letting them stay there. It's overcrowded. Are there enough heads for beds for heads? That's something we say. And it sounded like no, they're very overcrowded. So we're really looking at it's a doubled up situation that is inadequate, and we don't know if they're going to be able to stay. So it kind of hits on several different points that it is McKinney-Vento. So I'm glad you all knew it was McKinney-Vento, just not necessarily why.
Thank you guys for participating. I think we can answer any questions. I think, Karen, or Cindy, are they able to unmute if they want to ask a question?
Yes, and there is one question in here that says, so if they knew they were staying with the Martinez family, they wouldn't qualify, question mark.
Can you go back, Jenny, so I remember which one that is?
Yeah.
Sorry, I don't remember the names.
That was this last one we just did.
So if they knew they were staying.
I'm the one that
So
had the question. The way you had made it sound was that even though they knew, like you made it sound like if they knew that they were still going to be able to live with the Martinez family, they wouldn't be considered homeless. But I thought that since they didn't have their own place of residence and they were living with somebody, they automatically were homeless, regardless if it's migrant or not.
Good question. So it's not automatic, but it's a situation that we would look into. So it looks like first of all, they're overcrowded. So yes, they're McKinney-Vento. So that would be my first thing saying, hey, yeah, there's too many people in this 2-bedroom home. But if this was, let's say, a much larger home, and there could be some reasons that it wouldn't be, but for the most part, this one is, yes, going to be McKinney-Vento. I never want to say 100%. Something is always going to be McKinney-Vento. Any other questions? Okay, so just one more, we have more resources. I want to highlight Schoolhouse Connection is a great place if you have these types of questions. Schoolhouse Connection is a national advocacy group, but they have a lot of great information. They have webinars a lot on early childhood and other things. I highly suggest it. The other thing, I don't have this up here, but what I want to highlight for you is that I have my own conference. Jenny highlighted hers. I'm going to highlight mine. My McKinney-Vento summit or conference is March. Hold on. I got to look at a calendar. March 4th. Registration is open until this Friday. It is a free event. It's all day in Bloomington, Illinois. Always happy to have you there. If you just want to see what the agenda looks like, I'm happy to send you the link. Just shoot me a message at homeless@isb.net. I'm going to type that in the chat. And I see one question still on here. So if a child is identified as homeless, but the program is full, can they go on a wait list? Jenny?
So from our perspective, our funding, obviously you can't go over the 20, right, in the classroom. So we would, yes, they can go on the wait list, but we would hope that you would work with other community partners or other programs to try to find a placement for that child.
I 100% agree with that. But I like to pass it to Jenny because she's the early childhood guru. Thank you all so much for joining us. Feel free to email if you have any more questions.